heart of the dense forest, among the trees towering to the sky and branches waving in the wind, lived a small flying squirrel named Flyra. Her fur was as soft as velvet, reddish-brown like the autumn leaves. She had sharp, curious eyes. However, there was one thing that burdened her. Flyra was afraid of jumping far. Every day, her friends competed to glide from one tree to another, enjoying the freedom of floating in the air. But Flyra preferred to run along the branches, tightly gripping the bark with her tiny claws. Flyra could only watch her friends from afar, her heart uneasy every time she saw the ground far below. One day, when the sun shone golden and the gentle breeze whispered through the leaves, her friends invited Flyra to fly together. "Come on, Flyra. Flying squirrels should be able to glide, not just run on branches," said Rico, the nimblest young squirrel. "Or maybe Flyra is better suited to be a tree mouse," said another while laughing mockingly. Flyra lowered her head, though her ears burned. Her heart wanted to prove them wrong, but her fear still held her back. She looked at the branch across, the distance feeling so far. "I'm afraid. I'm not ready," she whispered. Her friends' laughter grew louder. They then dashed away, leaving Flyra sad and lowering her head. At that moment, a gentle but firm voice greeted her. "Flyra, dear, don't let their words define who you are." It was her mother's voice. She approached and gently stroked Flyra's head. "Every squirrel has its own time," continued her mother. "Courage doesn't mean never being afraid, but how you face that fear." Flyra took a deep breath. She wanted to believe, but her heart was still filled with doubt. One afternoon, when the sun hung high in the sky and birds sang cheerfully, Flyra's friends teased her again. "Flyra, how long will you just keep running?" asked Rico, the nimblest squirrel. "Is she afraid of falling?" cried another, accompanied by laughter. As she began to gather the courage to jump, suddenly from a tree not far from where the squirrels were, a panicked chirp was heard. A small bird had fallen from its nest into the bushes below. Its wings were still weak, it couldn't fly back up. Even more startling, a large shadow passed over the sky. An eagle was circling in the air, its sharp eyes locked on its prey. With strong wing beats, it began to dive down, ready to pounce on the helpless fledgling. Seeing this, Flyra's friends immediately jumped away, saving themselves to higher branches. However, Flyra remained in place. Her breath quickened. She knew if she didn't act, the fledgling would become the eagle's meal. "I have to jump," she whispered to herself. She looked ahead, to the lower branch where the fledgling was. The distance was far, but she had no other choice. She remembered her mother's words. Courage doesn't mean never being afraid. She took a deep breath. Her heart pounded. With one push, Flyra leaped. The cold air swept over her body. The membrane between her legs opened wide. She did not fall. She glided. The wind gently carried her body, and Flyra directed herself downward. Flyra landed right next to the fledgling and pulled the little bird into the cover of large roots, a more hidden place. The eagle swooped down quickly, its claws stretched out. However, when it saw its prey disappear from sight, it flapped its wings in frustration and soared back into the sky. Silence. Flyra could still feel her heart pounding. She looked at the trembling fledgling and then smiled. "You're safe now," she whispered softly. From above, her friends watched in awe. Rico, who had mocked her earlier, swallowed hard. "Flyra, that was amazing," he said softly. Flyra took a deep breath and smiled. "I just jumped even though I was scared," she said. And from that day on, Flyra never hesitated to glide again. In the distance, her mother smiled proudly, knowing that her child had found her true courage. Flyra gasped for breath, but in her heart, there was a new feeling that warmed her. She had done it. She had faced her fear. The next day, when the morning sun bathed the forest in its warm light, Flyra stood at the edge of the highest branch. Her friends watched her in awe. "Are you really going to fly from up there?" asked Rico, unbelieving. Flyra nodded confidently. Without hesitation, she began to jump and glide in the air, as beautifully as a leaf dancing in the wind's embrace. Flyra, the flying squirrel, had overcome her fear and found her confidence.